I am asked quite a bit to give advice on artwork. People send me their art and say, help me with this, please. And I've never really felt comfortable doing it until we did a live with Hay House for my book, where people sent in their artwork, and asked for advice. And it was just me and Donna doing this live, and it was actually really fun. I actually had fun looking at your art and giving advice, giving my best advice that I could. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a trained professional. I'm a trained professional artist, but not a trained professional teacher. And I've always felt a little icky about giving advice. Because I feel like, at least in art, there's no right way to do something. There's just everybody has their own way of doing things. And so I don't want to give advice where I say, this is the right way, or here's how you fix your art. I think your art is beautiful the way it is. I really do. But that said, enough of you wanted me to continue doing this. So I still have a stack of artwork from so many of you already that I'm going to start with these. These are essentially leftovers from the Hay House event, and I thought I would start with some advice. And so the first one I'm going to start off with is this one. Isn't this lovely? Okay, so today's piece of art is from Sophia G, who wrote, "Hi Scott, thank you for everything you've taught me. I've noticed my confidence and skills have increased since starting watching your videos in 2022. And then there's a little kissy, it's like the little at or bigger than with the 3. I think that's supposed to be like lips. I'm wondering how I can improve my watercolor techniques to create better shading and design of my characters. I have a simpler drawing style, but still wish for it to be polished." First of all, it's a beautiful drawing style. This is wonderful. I love the costume design. Here, let me get a paintbrush. I love like the swords and all the little the layering here and the details with the stitching. I don't know if that's stitching or just decorations, and the little, is it fleur de lunes with those and the roses here. All of this is really, really pretty, and I think the watercoloring is really nice. It's nice and artsy, but let's see what we can do to offer. I'm going to offer some solutions that might help you. These are not things that will make it better, because I don't think it needs to be better, but I'm going to offer you some things I might do, and you tell me if that helps you or not. Sound good? So after thinking about it for a minute, this is a list of things I would suggest. The first being the composition of your character, of your subject, the design, the overall design of the piece, your pose, your character's pose, the materials you're using, the art supplies that you're using are gonna make a difference. And then to add a little bit more realism, I would focus on lighting and then your texture. Materials and objects and hair have texture to them. So let's get out my sketchbook and we'll take a look and see what we can do. I use my sketchbook to think out my composition and my thoughts, and we're going to use it for you here. So let's start off with composition. How does your character occupy the space on your art? Where are they? Are they on the left side, the right side, the top, the bottom? Do they fill it up? Is it a close-up? Is it a far away shot? This is what we're going to focus on here. And right now, first thing I'm doing is I'm just kind of feeling out the shapes based on what you have. And in its simplest form, it's essentially a circle with a kind of upside down triangle-ish kind of thing, which is not a bad shape. If you look at it just as a whole, that's actually kind of a nice design. But what if we were to change that up a little bit? What if your character was further away? And what if their dress took up more of the page? It was just huge and swooping like this. Would that be more dramatic? Would that be more fun? What if your composition was horizontal instead of vertical, and they were off to the side, and their dress was swooshing off to the right, and it had a life of its own and it was occupying the majority of the bottom half of the piece. So those are thoughts on composition. That's where your character is on the page, whether it's to the left, to the right, they're further away, closer up. But what about design? This is the second thing. What if we use essentially the same layout that you currently have, which is that nice shape, as you can see there, but we added a design element, like an Art Nouveau type of circle with some other designy kind of elements with angles and curves and hard lines that framed your character on the page. We could do something like that, and now you've got a design. Have little sunbeam kind of things coming off of them. That's pretty cool. Another design element could just be a simple frame, like, as if your character was within the page. We put a border somewhere around here, and we're essentially having them break the border. Breaking the border is always fun. So we're essentially just expanding the page a little bit, and now you've got a unique design element. All of this is up to you as to how far you want to take it, but these are things that I use in my daily art to make my art a little bit extra, a little bit more. It's composition and it's the design. The next thing you can do is to change the pose. One of the things I've noticed is that when I was younger, I kept drawing the same pose all the time for my original character, Orion the Barbarian. Want to see? That's Orion in junior high, still junior high, and now we're into high school. I think that's chocolate milk. I spelled chocolate milk. And I'm still drawing him the same way. And then in college. In like 5 years, nothing changed, and it's always the same front-facing character. That's how I was able to draw them. It wasn't until I started taking figure drawing classes that I started to really enjoy drawing characters and people from different positions, sitting, standing, or like Wolverine or something like that. But there's so many ways that you could give this character life by changing how they are posed. Now, these are done out of my head, which are really bad. So another thing you could do is use photo reference, which I do all the time. Take this one, for instance. You could just copy the pose and add your character into that pose, change the costume to fit the costume that you like, and you've got something new, and you've got some great reference on how cloth folds and drapes, and it could be really, really interesting. Now, I've sped this up by 1.5 times, so this is 50% faster than it should be, but this is how artists learn. This is how we grow, by looking at real life, by studying, by practicing from real life. And there's nothing wrong to it. There's absolutely nothing wrong. It's the encouraged way for artists to learn and to grow. So I highly suggest this. Using reference for your art is free and it's helpful, and we have the internet at the palm of our hands, and we can search up sitting and standing and Victorian dresses and Elizabethan dresses. Is that a word, Elizabethan? Regency, I think, is another one. I'm sure Donna's squirming right now because I'm getting all of this wrong, but there's different kinds of dresses and different kind of poses that you could look up and reference and use it for inspiration. You could use it exactly, or you could just use it for inspiration, but changing the pose of your character is going to change the story that you're telling with your character. And that's what we do with our art. We're storytellers, and you have to think, when you're creating art, what is the story you're trying to tell? Who is this character? What is the world that they occupy? That's what your pose will add to your piece. The next suggestion is to change your materials. Now, I can't tell for sure what kind of sketchbook that you're working in. I could see the rings on the side, but it looks like it's not bad paper, and it seems to be taking your watercolor pretty well. but I just want to show you what good watercolor paper will do compared to medium grade watercolor paper or just regular kind of ish paper. So this is a sketchbook I got from Etcher Labs years ago to try out, and I did a test on it and I liked it. And Etcher makes good watercolor paper. It's high-end watercolor paper, and the price on their sketchbooks shows that. I think they're like $60 sketchbooks. It's called the Perfect sketchbook or something, and I really like them. That's what I did the hair journal in, and I don't use them for my daily sketchbook, but for this example, I think this is good. This is a good example of good watercolor paper, and I'm going to take this and move this off to the side and bring in this sketchbook. I think it's Strathmore. Donna got it for me, and I've played around with it, and the paper is a little too plain for me. It doesn't have enough texture to it. It doesn't have enough thickness to it for me to want to use. Sorry, Donna. I know it was a very nice Christmas gift, but it's good for this example because I think this is probably very close to what you're using. And I'm just going to use the same three colors to show how this is the two materials. It's the same paint, but how the two papers can look differently once the paint is dried. Okay, I tried to let this dry naturally, but I got tired of waiting and I wound up using the blow dryer, and that's why you're getting those streaks on the purple. But if you look at the lesser paper, at the thinner paper that's not made for watercolors, you can see that there's just weird textures to it and splotches to it that are just not very appealing. I mean, look at that. That's just not, it just doesn't dry very well. And then you look over at the really nice watercolor paper, the Etcher Labs watercolor paper, and it's more saturated. It soaks into the paper very well because it's cotton paper, and it's just got a nice feel to it. And you could see some of the texture coming through it from the paper. Now, this is a preference thing. This is not a mandatory thing. Some people might like the look of the stuff on the right, and that's totally fine. But I just wanted to show you how the materials makes a difference. Okay, the next thing we could do is to add lighting to your character and your scene. So what we want to do is we just want to pick a place where the light is coming from, whether it's sunlight or artificial light. And so we're going to pick this top right corner. There's our little sun, and it's going to be shining in that direction, which means everything in the opposite side is going to have a little bit more shadow. So I'm going to just show this is where all the shadows are going to be hitting. This is where you can either thicken up your lines or you can add shadows in your coloring. But this is what I would do, is I would go through and I would add the shadows. You're thinking three-dimensionally now. And I know your character is very stylized, but again, this is just me throwing out any possible thing that might interest you. You don't have to take any of this stuff. This is just me offering potential advice that you can take or not. This is completely up to you. Now we could take it a step further and we could add some shading inside. So not on the outside, but on the inside. And this marker was not the right one. Let's try this one. I just grabbed a marker and I thought I would just kind of see. But again, just thinking three-dimensionally, you could, in your watercolor painting, you could add a little bit of lighting on the skin, on the hair, on the dress, and that could be something that you really like. Okay, I'm just speeding this up really, really fast because I was just playing around and just seeing what it would look like. Markers aren't necessarily the best thing, especially on just printer paper, but just giving you an idea. You can have lighting will add mood to it. It'll add subtlety to it, and it could be fun. And finally, we're on to texture. Everything has texture. Skin has texture, hair has texture, clothing has texture, everything has texture. Depending on your style, you might want to add a little bit of texture to the hair, I do this a lot, where I kind of add lines to indicate where the hair is flowing, the direction that the hair is flowing. Sometimes I use it to create highlights. The other thing you could do is you can add texture to the dress, a little bit of a floral pattern or any kind of design that you want to. And if you look, it's just adding just a little bit of that separates it from the skin. And I think that's not a bad thing. You can always add things like wrinkles and creases as well. You could do larger patterns like this. That could be really, really pretty. I don't know if you would want to do it with inking like this, or sometimes you could go and get another material like an acrylic marker and add little details in a lighter color than the green. Or if you want to, you can add little dots and make it look like it's a type of beading, which I think actually looks really good. But that's texture, and I think texture is another way that you can improve your piece. I know this isn't the most glamorous thing, but I hope this helps a little bit, Sophia. I had a lot of fun working on your beautiful art. It was really fun, and honestly, I think it was perfect the way it was, but I hope these little bit of notes point you in the right direction of exploring your art in new ways. There's always something more we could do with our art, always. And that's not a bad thing, but I want you to also be content with where you are in your personal artistic journey. Where you are and the things that you've already achieved are amazing, and your art is beautiful, and I don't want you to ever forget that.